What's up, everybody? Welcome to the MSP Water Cooler featuring Robert Gillette and myself, Skofi, and our special guest today, which is you. And we had a few folks join us in the green room before we went live. But if you are just stumbling in for the first 10 to 15 minutes, it's all about you. So if you're an IT business owner, you do sales in an MSP, you're a business development guy in an MSP, even do marketing. If you're concerned with growth in your IT business, these first 10, 15 minutes are for you. And not just for you to be in the comments, but we want to drag your butts on screen with Robert and I for the first 10 minutes. And what we're going to do is we're going to take questions from you guys. And then after about 10, 15 minutes, we're going to kick everybody out. And then Robert and I are going to just cherry pick some questions, run down some rabbit trails, get on some soapboxes, and have some fun. So, thank you, Steve Levy, for joining us. Take a brief second. Tell us, in like a sentence or less, who you are, where you're from. And then Robert and I are going to ask you guys some questions, and we'll prime the pump. But there's a link on the LinkedIn chat for those of you watching right now. Do not be shy. Hop backstage into the lobby. We'll drag your butt on screen. Or if you're shy, you might be a little gun shy with the camera. That's okay too. If you still have a question, you can drop it in the chat and we'll get it in the queue as well. So glad you're here. We got a bunch of people already online. So say hi in the comments and use that link to join us on screen if you want. Steve, let's start off. Tell us a little bit briefly in like a sentence, 2 sentences max, who you are and what you do.
I'm Steve Brickner. I'm CEO and founder of Kraken Technology Solutions. And we're a IT, cybersecurity, and compliance firm in Central Florida.
Hot damn. Loved it. Love that you're here. Levy, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Levy Gillette. I work for a MSP. I'm very new to the tech SDR. I'm an SDR, and I'm very new to the tech world, so just kind of figuring things out. California.
Acronym alert. What's an SDR? Just so everybody's on the
Sales
same
development
page.
representative, excuse me.
Okay,
That's
got
right.
it.
Levy, my man's in the trenches doing the Lord's work. We're glad you're here, Levy. And then if you are giving us any attention at all, hopefully you already know Skofi and Robert, but I'm the founder of findmyitpartner.com. And Robert, introduce yourself real fast.
Co-founder of the MSP Growth OS, helping people transition away from owner-led sales.
So yeah, I'm tempted to throw the acronym alert right back at you with MSP Growth OS, but I think we all know what that means. I'm just going to wink as I say it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all right, man. I'm a hypocrite. That's fine. Let's move on.
Okay, so Robert and I love sales. We love the IT services space, and we love you if you're here. So the goal for these first few minutes is to get some tough, hard to answer questions. So Steve, when you knew you were going to hop on here, was there anything burning in the back of your mind? Like, man, if I could just answer this one thing, my life would be so different. What would your question be? Do you have anything, Steve?
Man, I tell you, it's tough. As an owner-led salesperson, it's really hard to it's hard to get people's attention and really get them to talk to you when you're selling them stuff. So, that's one of the biggest things for me is, the marketing is catching attention and people are interacting with it. Sorry. But to get them to sit and have a conversation, it's tough. And I think for me, maybe it's the small business owners are so involved in their business, they don't have a lot of time. So that could be part of it, but I really don't know what it takes to get that conversation started and get people to really interact with you and talk. Once you get it and you're able to show them the value of the service, it's not quite so bad, but getting the conversation going is really tough.
So I'm going to give a too long don't read version, and you tell me if you like the question. How do you get people's attention? How do you get them to talk to you?
Yep.
Yeah. If we answered that in this session, that would be valuable.
It'd definitely be helpful.
All right, I'm adding it to the question queue. Be thinking if you have a second or third question as well, but I want to give Levy a chance to ask before we get too carried away. Levy, you've got Robert and Skofi at your disposal, and anyone else who's watching, you're welcome to comment in the chat what your thoughts are on these topics as well. But give us something tough Give us a tough nut to crack. Do you have anything?
Well, I did it before I joined, but I think you guys were discussing just like handling stuff like handling business as far as your end goes. Like, well, dealing with employees essentially. And I know that Skofi, you had a company situation where you had to say goodbye to someone, correct? And at what point, like, do you guys make that decision? Is it like when it becomes like such a bad investment on your end with this person who you're working with, or they just don't fit? Like, what goes through your mind and this necessity of like letting someone go? How do you make that decision, and what goes through your head when you do?
Hey, Levi, can I jump in here real quick?
Please.
Dude, first of all, fantastic question. And I'm super excited that you're here because it's a big deal to not only ask that question out loud, but ask it out loud on a live stream. Like, I want to commend you for your authenticity and vulnerability in doing that. May I have your permission to ask you a follow-up?
Please, I'm here.
Are you asking this as a future entrepreneur or a guy currently sitting in the sales seat?
I'm actually asking that as three of those things. I'm not sure if I'm an entrepreneur yet. I'm in the sales seat right now, and I'm like, man, like, at what point are they tired of me? And the third time as like a manager in a different kind of role where I had to make that decision before.
That's awesome. Thank you for that, buddy. That's a great question.
So I've absolutely added your question to the queue, Levy, and this is kind of the too long don't read version that I wrote down. How do you know when to fire someone? When you let someone go, what goes through your head? What justifies the decision? So that's what we'll unpack here in a minute when we kick you guys out. Great question. But for those of you who are watching that are in the IT services space, we already had Ron who showed Levy some love. But anyone else, I highly encourage you. Levy's literally weeks old in the MSP industry. So say hi and encourage this guy because we need more Levys doing what Levy does. So I echo what Robert said. We're glad you're here, man.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay, so we got several great questions already. If anybody else in the chat we don't have anyone else backstage, no one else was brave enough to join us on screen yet, but it's not too late for maybe one or two of you to pop in, use the link, you scroll to the wherever it is in the LinkedIn chat, but I posted it there. You can join us on StreamYard and we'll drag you in or drop your comments in. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm sorry, we're not really monitoring those comments right now, but I don't think a lot of you are yet. So LinkedIn's the place to be for this right now. Other than that, Robert, do you have anything that's burning in your brain these days that you want?
Oh God, no, I've always got something burning. I've got something to complain about, I'm sure. But no, I think the thing that's that I've just been really diving into lately is, what are we here for in terms of like as sales coaches or people that are helping hire and develop salespeople? Like, what do we really have to offer? What value are we adding? And so much so that like our core values here at the MSP Growth OS are SALT. It's SALT, and I'll let you figure out what those mean if you guys want to visit the website. But we just added an E to it, so we're salty now, and that E is encouragement. We think it's so important to encourage people, and I'm making it kind of like one of my professional development goals is like, how do I double, triple, quadruple down on encouragement? Because it's just so rare for people to get the genuine, honest, non-flattery encouragement these days. It's just so rare, and so that's just almost, it's like the thought that's festering in my brain right now is like, how do we be a culture of encouragers? It's one of those things that I'm trying to grow in. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Oh, well, the question being, how do we become a culture of encouragers? I love that. Oh, we got someone. We got someone backstage. We got another gentleman. Actually, we got two people backstage. All right, I did say 10 to 15 minutes, so it'll have to be fast. I'm going to bring your butts on. Levy, Steve, thank you for being here. I'm going to move you guys backstage. If you want to hop off here and join us on LinkedIn, that'd be great, but I want to make room for our next guests. So going to go ahead and pop you out. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We'll jump into your questions here shortly, but let's start off with Alex. Alex,
Hi.
how are you, sir? Welcome.
Very well, sir. Thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
Yeah, so we've got just a few quick minutes before we're going to jump into the meat and potatoes of our session. Ask your question. You got a question for Robert or myself?
Question as well, if I may, very quick sort of self-sale plug. So I'm a freelance engineer myself, been in the industry for 20 years in corporate and in MSP. Looking for more clients basically. So feel free to hit me up and connect with me. I guess the obvious question would be, how is the best way for me to get clients?
Okay.
So I post on various different MSP Facebook groups, but obviously, everyone's trying to, watching their pennies, everything, which I fully get and understand.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to kick you out, Alex, and then I'll write down your question. The question being, how do I get more clients? That's the $1 million question, isn't it? And if we have time, we'll definitely jump into it. Thank you for being here, Alex. I appreciate you. We're going to add this to the queue. And then our last gentleman, Brett, I'm so glad you're here. So Brett works very closely with Levy, and they both started at the same time. So thank you for popping in here, Brett. Introduce yourself really fast and then give Robert and I a question.
Of course, guys. Thank you for having me. I have 1 year left in college, and I just jumped into the MSP space trying to do sales myself. My question is, it seems like a lot of MSP's current business is through word of mouth or going to conventions or even collaborations like you two are doing right now. How do you grow your business in terms of going through the nitty gritty cold calling side of things? Because that's what I'm trying to do right now. And I find I'm making 85 calls a day sometimes, and I'm just struggling to even get somebody interested. And so how do you go about growing your MSP in that area?
Yeah.
Great question, Brett. And anybody who has been in the trenches before resonates with that on an existential level. So we're so glad you're here, Brett. Thank you for hanging out. I'm going to go ahead and dump you out of the main lobby as well.
Kindly.
And yes, kindly. And anybody who's hanging backstage, I'd encourage you to join us back on LinkedIn. So that concludes our time for taking questions. But Brett, while you're listening, the question I'm writing down, how do you grow your business in terms of going through the nitty gritty cold calling side of things? And that's very similar to kind of what Steve asked earlier about how do you get their attention? Okay. So adding that, man, we've got so many great questions today,
Yeah, dude,
Robert.
that's like 4 hours of questions. I don't know.
Dude, I know. We'll do our best to get to all of them.
But...
We'll do our best to get to all of them. And and we've also got one from Ron here, and I'm gonna just in the chat. So we actually have another one. So man, this is so great. We're gonna have to contain ourselves, Robert, and I'm actually talking to myself more than anything. I do so much talking. But I want to make sure that I add Ron's question to the queue. Okay, man, where to start? I'm just going to start at the top. Sound good?
Dude, do it. Wherever the top is, go for it.
Steve, all right. You gave us a great question. You got your Kraken IT or Kraken Technology, your new MSP. Congratulations and condolences to a freshly minted entrepreneur. At the same time, the $1 million question, how do you get people's attention? How do you get them to talk to you? So in your case, Steve, I know I see you doing the Lord's work. You're posting all the time. You're working with your local chamber. Literally right before you hopped on, you were doing an AI presentation to your local chamber. You're working with a nonprofit in your community, and you're doing all these things, and yet you still seem to struggle. Everybody does. Robert, you take a crack at this first.
Yeah, man, I hate to deny the premise of a question, but actually what you like, getting someone's attention isn't really good enough. A loud scream or a gunshot will get people's attention, but doesn't, in my opinion, get the right kind of attention. And so, when I think of like getting someone's attention, I like to think about like fishing. I'm not a big fisher, but I've only been fishing like twice. But I have noticed that if you don't have the right bait, it's not the fish's fault. And so that's one of those things that I see is people go like, I'm just such a good at MSP. I do such a good job. And our tech stack is great. Or I just finished this new whatever. And that's awesome. And that's great. It tends, however, to be table stakes. It's like paying the big blind. Cool. Now you get to play the hand of poker, but it's not necessarily a reason for anyone to buy from you specifically. And so, the big question is always like, not how do I get people's attention, but how do I catch the fish? and it starts with making sure you've got the right bait. So if I was going to talk to a company, especially if I'm at a sub-$1 million MSP, I'm thinking like, how could I get someone to pay attention to me in the way I want for the long haul? And so I always say, come up with a great, offer. And I don't mean like something you could sell them offer, but I like to call it a sales nugget. So it starts with, you have a great one. It doesn't have to be in this format, but you say, if I could X and it got you Y, would you Z? So if I could give you X and you got Y, would you Z? Now the big one is, if I could solve all your problems, would you, and all your problems went away, would you give me money? That's like the big one. But like a small one is like, if I could show you how to make that stupid box never show up again when you click on this thing and it goes beep boop, and I could do that in 15 minutes, would you spend 15 minutes with me? And they're like, oh my God, you can do that? Like, yeah, because I know your software so well. I know you have that stupid box, because everybody in your industry does. That's really good bait. You know what I mean? So, okay, that was a long-winded answer. I'm sorry. But
no, I love it. You made me think of a quote, and I'm struggling to remember where it came from. Is it a war movie or a sports movie? I feel like it came from a movie. Aim small, miss small.
I think it's a military phrase. Yeah.
I thought, I feel like I saw that in a war movie somewhere. And if you know that in the comments, please educate me and remind me where I saw that.
Well, I can mansplain it too if you want, because my COO is a military guy.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Robert. How many times in this last year have you heard from an MSP business owner or sales leader say something like this? Man, I have a high close rate. Once I get the fish on, I can bring them into the boat, but I just really struggle with getting them to talk to me initially. But I have a high close rate. How many times have you heard that this year?
If you ever want to see me lose my temper. No, I'm just kidding. I do hear it a lot. People say like, man, when I'm in front of the right prospect and they're really serious and they're a good prospect, or they say when they're qualified, I'm above like a 90% close rate. And I go, that's awesome, man. That's like saying, if someone delivers a fully cooked steak to my table with a knife and a fork, I cannot choke on it. Like, that's awesome, man. Good job. The challenge is, how do you like grow a business when you have to wait for people to bring you the steak?
That's right.
Because the MSPs that can scale to 1, 3, 5, 10, 20 million are the ones that know how to raise the cow, slaughter it, and turn it into something that's edible.
That's right.
And that's the real challenge.
Yeah. My answer to this question, Steve, would be, I'll echo Robert a little bit. It's not actually difficult to get people's attention. Getting their attention is one thing. Sustaining the attention is incredibly difficult if you do not have something worth their time. Worth their time. Mm-hmm. If I called you right now, I'm going to go out on a limb, and everybody watching this live stream right now has a cell phone. Okay. You might be watching this on your cell phone. Your cell phone has a provider, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, whatever. You have a provider. You pay that provider dollars. Okay. Maybe you have significant loyalty to that provider. Maybe you don't. It provides a utility. It provides a service. If I called you right now and said, hey, I will really want you to, what do you use, Robert?
Actually, I just switched to cell phone providers. So this is an interesting conversation. Keep going.
Okay. So all right. So if I called you and I said, I think you should, use Sprint, right? And I want you to switch to Sprint. But let's say you've been using Verizon for a number of years, right? And I'm even going to offer you a better deal. I'm going to save you money, but you've had no issues with what you're doing right now, right? The reality is, like, MSPs often think that I have to give some like discount to my services. I have to give them, give away my product, my service for free, and like getting them to switch and change. It's like, well, it's not even in most people's minds most of the time. Like, they don't care. Yeah. They don't care. But they do care if they're dealing with a shitty provider that's giving them shitty service. Yeah, or they're having all kinds of issues.
100%. If I could offer you, Jonathan, right now, the cure to Ebola, that would be an amazing thing. Sure. But you don't have Ebola, so why would you pay for that?
That's right.
And I think that's one of the challenges we have is in the MSP space, we're so used to waiting for people to come to us with the problem. And this kind of gets into another question someone asked. So I'm leading a little bit here. Like, one of the challenges of switching from owner-led sales to outbound sales, like hiring sales guys, is that your business is probably somewhat, if not completely, built off of people coming to you with problems. And the challenge is that to really grow, it's almost essential to figure out how can you help people understand they have problems
That's right.
before they're ready to spend money solving them. Because
Right.
that's the magic sweet spot where deals aren't competitive and you're
Yeah.
really the only one in town.
Yeah.
And if one can find a way to somehow exponentially increase that type of conversation, it's almost unlimited in how much you could grow if you could reliably do it.
That's right. Now, I do want to switch to another question because we have so many great questions. Before we do, Steve, I want to leave you with something hopefully incredibly practical that can help you with what we're talking about right now, right? You've got a handful of customers right now that are giving you money for reasons, right? So if you're wondering what is that reason, I suggest you go ask them. And this is true for any IT provider right now. Like, what's the compelling reason that they are giving you money? And don't do this with your crappy clients, by the way. Like, go to your top 5 that you, man, if I had 25 more of these customers this year, it would totally revolutionize and change my business, right? If I had 25 of these customers, go to those 5 and sit down, ask them for 30 minutes and be like, hey, if I got hit by a bus, how would tomorrow you had to replace me? How would you do it? And then why would you do it? And what would drive your decisions? And what would get your attention? It's not rocket surgery always. Sometimes you just have to ask your customers why they care and what they care most about. From there, you're going to see that compelling thing that you should be building your messaging around. That compelling, aim small, miss small. What's that target that you need to definitely dial in on? Right now, if you're like IT, security, compliance, AI, those are super big, super broad. You're aiming way too big, so you're going to miss wide. But if you're like, I see you're in the healthcare industry and you're struggling to get doctors' notes into your EMH system, that's small. I have one of my partners that's
If I could show you how to get notes into your EMH system 30% faster for $0, would that be worth an hour-long conversation?
Okay, now before we transition,
that's the right bait. I bet you. I'm willing to bet.
That's right. All right. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to get your question off the screen. Hopefully that was valuable to you. We've got a couple comments, and I just want to highlight them real fast. Robert, we're going to refrain from going down too many rabbit holes right now.
Good luck.
Steve said, getting the attention about the right problems. Michael says, loving that barnyard analogy. Looks like I need to embrace that. Ron, IPC, ideal, ICP, ideal customer profile.
Is IPC a new kind of beer?
I drink IPC every weekend. Ideal profile of my customer. Ron, such a great topic. Thank you for the feedback. All right, we're caught up on comments. Let's jump into our next question. Levy, this is such a great one, and we have to refrain from going too long on it. But how do you know when to fire someone? When you let someone go, what goes through your head? What justifies the decision? Now let's package this through the lens of MSP sales and business development, or maybe even marketing per se. Robert, you take a crack at this first. I have strong opinions here.
Oh man, I have strong opinions too. And I can tell you one of the mistakes that I see most MSP owners make is that they didn't count the cost. And they're like there's an old Eastern proverb of don't be the guy that builds like a building and gets half done and runs out of money, because then everyone will laugh at the monument you've created to your inability to calculate. I've obviously paraphrased that quite a bit, but this is what happens with MSP owners all the time. They're like, God, I need a sales guy. And they hire a sales guy and they give them about a third of the time they needed. And they look at how much money they're spending and they can't see the end. They don't understand really what success looks like. And so they have an emotional decision that they back up with data later and they fire a person.
That's right.
That is really common. So like at the high level, how do you know when to fire someone? You should be deciding that before you hire them.
Agreed.
And it should be something that you can calculate and put on a spreadsheet and measure. And you can say, it doesn't matter how I feel about this. If they're doing this, they go. If they're doing this, they stay. That's, obviously this is a hard, fast rule. There's a ton of nuance in here, but if you haven't done that, then how would you like to live in a job where you don't know any day when you wake up if you're doing a good job or not?
Yep.
I mean, that's really hard for anyone to do.
Yep. I'm going to answer this starting from the highest level and then as quickly as I can bring it down to the more granular level. The hiring and firing of people starts from a cultural component in the identity of an organization. So the answer to this question will be different if I am a sales manager or if I am a business owner, potentially. There's some nuance here. But oftentimes the reasons people don't work out in a business have less to do with performance and more to do with misalignment of the human. Misalignment, whether it's cultural misalignment, strategic misalignment, or competency misalignment. I've worked with people that got into business development roles who would have been incredible customer success managers who probably should never
preach it, brother.
And so I think it starts with leadership facilitating a clear vision and mission for the organization, a direction that everybody flows into. From there, each department and organization within the business needs to, every decision they make, flow up to that overarching thing. And that will inform the why behind you bringing people into this thing that is your precious venture or your precious department, which is attached to the venture. And this will hopefully avoid you having to let many people go. Levy, 100%. You mentioned that in recent past, I had to make a tough decision. And I can just tell you right now, it wasn't necessarily a performance-related issue. There was a more existential component related to this about we're going different directions. And as the business owner, I knew with crystal clear precision where we were going and the velocity with which we were trying to get there. And if there's misalignment on that core level, that makes it very simple. It makes it very simple for you to identify that this isn't going to work. You want to give people every chance you can to be successful. And that is on leadership to facilitate what success looks like and investing what they need: time, money, resources, training, and culture and community that all bake into someone being successful. None of it's easy. But if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, and you wouldn't be asking this question.
100%, man. No, I'm with you, but I'm going to also just balance that with, everything in life. There's very rare for someone to be 100% wrong. When they are, there's usually war criminal trials involved. Okay, so a big part of this question as well, Levi is asking as the sales pro, as a professional in the seat, asking what can I do to maximize my chances of success? And realizing that sales is this weird thing. It's not quite entrepreneurship, but it's also not quite employment, because you share in the risk and reward just like an entrepreneur would. And so, I encourage everyone who's sitting in the seat, if you make any type of commission or incentive-based bonus or anything, you're not really an employee. You're more like a franchise owner.
That's right.
And so the question is, how can I make my franchise the most successful it can be, even if I'm not getting what I need from my franchise leadership group? Of course, we want stuff from them, and we're going to ask for things, and you have a right to demand those. But at the end of the day, you can fail for their lack of success, if that makes sense. And so you have to also be taking this ownership piece and going what part of this is my job to push my success forward? Even if even if my employer is stumbling, what can I control? What can I do to maximize my chances of making my franchise successful?
That's right. Dude, I love it. I love it. All right. So we have another comment, and we'll transition to another question. Michael, not everybody's a fan, but I personally am, and I don't necessarily follow traction explicitly, but I've created my own kind of bastardized version of it. But conceptually, this idea that leadership starts at the top and ownership is distributed across the organization, I'm a big fan. So I'm not surprised you saw some parallels to what we were talking about there. All right, let's jump into our next question. I'm really encouraged, Robert. I wasn't sure if we'd have a lot of questions, so I actually used AI to like prep us with a few like dummy
Don't
questions.
admit that. Don't admit that, man. Secret
No,
sauce.
no. I should have had more confidence in our people because you guys are showing up and asking really fantastic questions. All right. I'm going to skip over yours, Robert, because we
Please
can
do.
talk
No
about
one
that
cares.
anytime. But
Yeah, seriously, move on.
Let's briefly touch on this one.
Yeah.
Alex, thank you for hopping in on us and asking this question. How do I get more clients? I'm going to take a crack at it really fast. The first thing is where thy prospect is, there thou shalt also be. I mean, there's so much more nuance to this, but if I saw the biggest reason why I think MSPs don't get more customers, it's because their prospective clients have no idea who they are, no idea why they're there. And when shit hits the fan, your number is not the one that they call because they have no idea who you are.
Yep.
So get out there, be known. And so I'll commend, I'm not trying to gas you up too much, Steve, but we were talking before we went live and you were asking sort of a similar question. How do I get their attention? I would commend you and encourage you to continue doing the things that you're doing, getting active in your local chamber, working with this nonprofit that you've organized to facilitate education and around technology in your local community, being consistent with social media and having a strong and consistent message that you're putting out everywhere. But when I say where your prospect is, there thou shalt also be, that's their voicemail inbox, their email inbox, their LinkedIn, their physical office, their professional associations, the networking groups, their local country club, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're hearing me say this and you're like, that's so much to do. Yeah, that's why whole organizations are built around helping you do these things and helping hold you accountable to executing on them. But that's hard, I know, to be everywhere. But that's the number one thing, step number one. Robert, what's step number two? Or do you disagree? You might disagree.
First of all, I hate this question so much. Because dude, I have a nephew who just turned 18 and he asked me the last time I saw him, hey, how do I find a wife? And I'm like, oh yeah, let me just give you that answer. Like it's, I mean, it's just like I hate it because what people are really asking for is like, how can you save me? How do I survive? And, for a third of people, there's an easy bullet. There's like a quick little, there you go, do that, you'll be fine. For a third of people, there's maybe like a really, really complicated answer with a lot of nuance that requires someone to like tweak on for 3 years and then you'll be there. And then for some people, there is no answer. You're just not going to be successful. And that's really hard to hear. But like the stats on small businesses failing are not great. So like, it's really tough to say, but this would be my answer to just try to answer that question is do something always. So what I see with a lot of MSPs is they go, crap, I need revenue. And they'll do a bunch of stuff a lot, whatever that is, cold calling, networking, advertising, something. They do something and they grind and grind and grind. And then the bet pays off. And then they serve and serve and serve. And then they get into trouble again and they grind and grind and grind. And so I just encourage people like do something always. Pick a certain amount of something you can stomach and can reliably do that works. Do that as often as is reasonable or as often as you can and let it like Novocaine just start to work. It's not going to work right away, and then when it starts to work, don't stop. And so whether you're a sales pro or whether you're a business owner, I'd like to know what that no was for.
I know.
Like,
you got to give some context behind that.
So I 100% agree that like, yes, be where your customer is, wherever that is. But again, it's do something always. Just find some activity, some kind of what I call outbound prospecting activities, something you can do that would put you in that place where your client is, and they might actually hear about what you're doing, and then do it consistently without fail, like the way you pay payroll. You don't forget about payroll. You don't get too busy for payroll. You run payroll.
That's right.
And so make it a part of your business as consistent as logging hours. You know, if you expect your techs to put their notes in your PSA, with that level of, oh my gosh, the business will not survive if we don't do this. Find
Right.
what that is and do it, and don't stop ever.
I'm going to say one more thing, and we're going to transition into our next question. If you were to look at my calendar, and I'm not making this up, because I'm sharing this with you because I practice what I preach, and what I wish more MSP business owners and sales leaders did. There are literally 3 large blocks of time on my calendar that are, the title of them is sacred. That is what they are called, sacred. And that is the number one thing that Robert, you're talking about this. Do something always. So step 1, Alex, go to your calendar, identify how much time you have to work on growing the business. And whatever that number is in your head, double it, because you probably have more than you think. Double it. Block it off on your calendar and treat it as sacred. Nobody gets to book over that time. And that time is meant to be dedicated towards business development activities, just like what Robert is saying.
Yeah.
So give yourself the space to do the things that move the needle, and then do them consistently always. I love it.
And one of the ways, by the way, to keep that sacred time sacred is do a little built-in accountability. Find another business owner. It doesn't have to be an MSP. Go find your insurance broker and say, hey man, we're going to schedule 3 times a week for 1 hour where we're both just going to cold call.
That's right.
And I'm going to send you a calendar appointment. We're going to open a Zoom or Teams meeting. We're going to wave at each other, mute our mics, and then just make cold calls for an hour. And then if I don't show up to that, I owe you $100.
That's right. That's right.
Boom. That little bit of accountability might make the whole difference in your next 3 clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Michael here says meetings make money. I totally agree. Do the activities to find the meetings. Ron says fish in the pond where the fish are. I totally agree. Ron also says your network is your net worth, Porter Gale. Yeah. So go build your network. Michael chimed in on your wife example. Be the kind of person that your ideal person is looking for. Okay. Yes, definitely. Definitely. But if all you did was work on yourself, don't be surprised when your future spouse has no idea who you are. At some point, you do need to step outside of your comfort zone and go and introduce yourself to that.
I mean, it's a great what. It's a great what you should do. Yeah,
right.
But it's not a how. Like, how do I go do that? And I think that's what so many MSPs struggle with, the how. Like, how do I do? Okay, cool. I'll cold call, whatever. How? And creating sacred times is a great way to start that. If you're just sitting there for an hour, eventually you'll get over that and you'll just start cold calling.
That's right. I think we probably have time for maybe one more, because I know you have a hard stop at the top of the hour, Robert, and so do I. So let me see here. That one was Alex. Brett, I want to make sure we ask your question here. Let's just take a moment. If anyone's like kind of stumbling into this later, we've got a couple folks that are asking questions who are new to the industry and in new, freshly minted sales roles that are really, really tough, spending a lot of time doing the work in the trenches. We appreciate you guys. How do you grow your business in terms of going through the nitty gritty cold calling side of things? So I'll just take a quick stab at this, and Robert, you can.
Yeah, this is your wheelhouse, man. Start spinning.
Yeah. So the phone is just one of many channels by which you can earn what I call the mental real estate of the prospect. Robert's heard me get on this soapbox before, and I'll try not to get too involved in it. But when you're talking about business development, there was somebody in the chat somewhere earlier who said cold calling is really more of a function of marketing than sales. And I could appreciate why people would feel that way. Really, at the end of the day, the reason a buyer is going to buy from you is they have BANT is in place, budget, authority, need, timing, all of that stuff. If you're familiar with BANT, that's the first thing. But the reason they're doing that with you and not somebody else is, assuming all things being equal and true, you've done the work to earn mental real estate with that future customer. And the phone is one of many ways you can do it. I'm old school. I still believe in it because I want authentic physical human connection. And if I get 30 seconds for someone to literally hear my physical voice, I can't be at 100 networking events in a day, but I can make 100 calls in a day. And if that means I get to talk with 10, 20 people today, and maybe 10% of those are going to be somewhat meaningful, the odds of me earning legitimate mental real estate go up. But if that's all you do, you're missing out. There's a multitude of channels by which you can earn that mental real estate. If you're feeling discouraged, lean into the reasons people listen, right? Think about the last meaningful conversation you had with another human being. I don't care what it was. Why did they get your attention, not somebody else? And then reverse engineer that. It probably had something to do with authenticity, something relevant to you, something you instantly could latch your teeth into and identify with, and reverse engineer that for what you're trying to sell out there in the space. Your customers may not care about AI. They may not care about cybersecurity the way they should. Maybe there's a different avenue by which you can leverage something they care about to get you a more meaningful conversation.
100%.
And then second, just do it a multitude of different ways and don't give up. All right, Robert, you take it away.
Well, it's like, you're hinting back to that, like, are you fishing with the right bait? Like, I think that's great. I 100% agree. The only thing I would add to it, and this is a yes and, it's truly a yes and, so don't let this disregard anything Skofi just said. But the question is, do you think of cold calling like winning the lottery or investing in your 401k?
That's right.
So a lot of people think of cold calling like the lottery. They're like, I'm going to make a call. I'm going to make 100 calls and I'm going to book an appointment and I'm going to clock out for the day and I did my job. That's not technically wrong. It's just an interesting perspective. I try and think of cold calling more like investing in my 401k. I'm going to make 100 calls. I'm going to learn a ton of information. I'm going to build my database a little bit. I'm going to get like 3 to 5 names of people that when I call them in 90 days, they'll be real. This is a real company that is qualified. And if I do that enough times, I'm going to trip over 2 people a week that just are in such bad need of IT. It's just so bad that any stranger that gets to their desk, they'll take a meeting with. And that's great. Woohoo. But really, that's just the icing on the cake. It's really, what are you building towards? If you do this for a year, what will you have at your disposal besides a bunch of appointments you did? Because there's a yes and to this as well. Does that make sense? Is that kind of a weird analogy?
I think it's great. I think it's really, really great. I love the idea of investing in your 401k rather than winning the lottery, because my analogy of mental real estate being something that you earn and accrue, right? It's not something you stumble into. I've said this before. If you know me at all, you've probably heard me use this analogy, but like your free cyber risk assessment really bothers me, because if that's your lead magnet you're leading with, I think of it as like somebody walking up to you on the street and saying, hey, I'm giving out free colonoscopies. And this is a total stranger. Say, I'm here giving out free colonoscopies. You want your free colonoscopy? Well, is a colonoscopy valuable? Absolutely, it's valuable in the right context for the right person. Are you going to accept one in a back alley from a stranger? I sure hope not. So but under what conditions do you say yes to that offer? Well, it's because you trust whoever's on the other side of that conversation. It's a recommended doctor that has the credentials that that has been referred to you by friends that have high confidence in that individual. So that is not a thing that you just get by winning the lottery off a single cold call. That you need to build and invest in earning mental real estate with your future customer, and be patient with yourself as you learn the best way to talk to a prospect and get that kind of reaction from them. And then, I had one of the SDRs that I work with earlier this week said, man, we called somebody and they're already working with an MSP. And they said, maybe we should talk in 6 months or a year or whatever. And I said, that's one of the most valuable things that prospect could have told you, right? Now they even encouraged you to connect with them at a future time. So now you have a status quo from which to build. Okay. And they didn't say yes to a meeting today, but now you know this much more than you did before the conversation that can arm you to earn more mental real estate. And so you better believe you should leverage that. Okay, we are basically out of time. I'm just going to pull Ron's question onto the screen and we're not going to answer it. Ron, if you're still with us, do us a favor. Next Wednesday, we're going to go live again. And I'd love, Ron, for you to join us live on screen and ask us in the first 10 to 15 minutes, ask us this question again. If you don't, I'm going to earmark this and I'll bring it up myself anyways, because this is one of the best questions we've had today and we just do not have time to do justice to it. But anyone who is here today, watching with us. We appreciate you. This is going to be a weekly thing for us with an asterisk next to it, most Wednesdays. So literally this afternoon, I'm going to create another LinkedIn event, and I'll invite everybody who said yes to this one and then some. We'd love for this to be more interactive and more engaging. If you have feedback for me and Robert as we're figuring out this live stream thing, please let us know what you'd love to see out of this. If you got value out of this, show us some love. It helps the algorithm, and it also helps us get better. And Robert, final thoughts, closing statements, comments?
Dude, I'm just grateful for you, and you do all the hard work. I just get to show up to this thing. And I just wanted to thank you for both involving me and doing all the hard stuff. I know you've got a lot of ways you can be where your customer is, and I'm grateful that you invited me into this one. So thanks, buddy.
That is absolutely a mutual sentiment. I appreciate you being here. And catch you all next time. I'm going to close the stream, and we'll see you out there.